guys, it's me again. Here we go with the first of today's videos. I was just starting off with the Falkland Islands. Here we go. Although there was evidence of Patagonian Indians may have reached the Falkland Islands in canoes, the islands were officially discovered on the 14th of August 1592 by John Davis, as captain of HMS Desire, during an English naval expedition. The Portuguese chart indicates knowledge of the islands in as early as 1522. As the Falklands Islands, the Spanish name is Isla Malvinas, derives from an early French navigator from Saint Malo, who called down Les Malorines after their home port, as no European had established a settlement until 1764, and where the French built a garrison at Port Louis on the East Falklands, discarding Spanish claims under the Papal Treaty of Tordesillas, as they derived a new world between Spain and Portugal. Ominous to either France or Spain, Britain set up a West Falklands outpost at Port Egmont on Saunders Island. In 1765, Spain meanwhile discovered and supplanted the French colony after amicable settlement, as the Spanish then kind of turned their attention towards the British. In 1767, under threat of war, as Spain restored Port Egmont to Britain, who only a few years later abandoned the area without, however, renouncing their territorial claim. As for the rest of the 18th century, Spain maintained the islands as one of the world's most secure penal colonies. After it abandoned the colonies in the early 1800s, only whales and sealers visited, until the United Provinces of the Rio de la Plata, or what is now Argentina, sent a military governor in the early 1820s to assert its claim as a successor to Spain, and later naturalized Buenos Aires entrepreneur named Luis Vernet initiated a project to monitor uncontrolled sealers and sustainably exploit local fur seal populations. Has been a seizure of 3 American sealing vessels, Harriet, Superior, and Breakwater, in Berkeley Sound, triggered reprisals from a U.S. naval officer called Captain Silas Duncan, who was supposedly hot-headed, and commanded the corvette USS Lexington, who vandalized the Port Louis settlement beyond restoration in 1831. After Vernet's departure, Buenos Aires kept a token force there until early 1833, when it was expelled by Britain, as Vernet pursued his claims for the property damage in British courts for nearly 30 years, although it was unsuccessful. Under the British, the Falklands languished until the mid-19th century, where sheep began to replace cattle and wool became an important export. It was founded by Samuel Lafon, an Englishman from Montevideo. The Falkland Island Company, FAIC, became the island's largest landholder. A number of other immigrant entrepreneurs occupied all of the available pastoral lands in the extensive holdings by the 1870s. As wool raising was very successful and spawned similar operations within South America, nothing stood in the way of sheep. The wara, the island's only native mammal, was wiped out. Bounties were placed on birds felt to be a threat to the sheep, and the native were soon devastated by overgrazing, and by the late 1800s, the island's ecology was tottering, and the amount of exhausted land needed to sustain each sheep was growing, as the deliberate introduction of cats and the accidental introduction of rats devastated the small bird populations. As land overuse brought horrible problems, as did land ownership, as from the 1870s to 1970s, the islands was a near-feudal society with landowners in London, as absentee landlords, often exhibiting all the bad qualities those words imply, carrying only about the bottom line, while islanders were essentially poor paid labourers. And since all the land had been parcelled out in the early days of British rule, the islanders could not acquire any more. Even publicly owned land was minimal. Apart from a few outlying islands. The Falklands today were almost devoid of parks and reserves. As things began to change in the late 70s, when a sale and subdivision of large land holdings were encouraged to order to slow high rates of emigration, and change has become even more rapid since 1982. Prior to the Falkland Wars, there were only about 35 farms on the Falklands, and the island's population was declining steadily. And now there are about 90 owners, owner-occupied farms averaging about 12,000 hectares. Unfortunately, encouraging local farm ownership coincided with steep long-term drop in wool prices. So many new Falkland landowners have been struggling. As during the long years of unchanged pastoralism, the two world wars were the Falklands' only major interruptions. As in World War One, the Battle of the Falkland Islands was fought southeast of Stanley. As the biggest intrusion of the island, however, came with the invasion by Argentina to the Falkland Islands in 1982. As Britain and Argentina only restored diplomatic relations in 1990, but since the war, most Falklanders want little or nothing to do with Argentina, as Argentine politicians regularly boast that the islands will soon be Argentine once again. But British officials insist they won't hold negotiations on the island's sovereignty until the those living on Falkland Islands, kind of ask for it. As following the war, Britain showed greatly renewed interest in the islands. As the Falklands, they received full British citizenship, and Britain also allowed the Falklands government to declare conservation and management zone around the islands, giving the Falklands control over fishing and oil exploitation rights in the area. As Britain had refused permission for the previously for affairs of irritating Argentina, as the Falklands remain a colonial anachronism, administered by a governor appointed by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in London. As in the local affairs, the 8-member elected Legislative Council (LegCo) exercises power over most internal matters. As 4 of the 8 members come from Stanley, with the mainly representing camp, as Britain controls defence and international relationships. As many books have been written about the islands since the Falkland War. So I've seen a few documentaries and all that, and they are interesting, as I would highly recommend finding out more about them. But the most readily available general account is the 3rd edition of Iron Strange, the Falkland Islands in 1984, which covered the island's geography, history and natural history, to get the most out of the visit, you could pick up a visitor's guide to the Falkland Islands from 2005 by Debbie Summers, who does come from the Falkland Islands. And there's the assorted foot. While the assorted footwear hill doesn't have the same charm as Boot Hill, it would be more accurate description of the assorted shoes and the stakes that litter the Falkland Islands hilltop, as it isn't the only place empty shoes have kind of commented as across the US there have been fanciful shoe trees that have periodically popped up here and there. Okay, so shoes in the Danube, the empty vessel were left there into one of the thousands executed on the riverbank during World War II. As Boot Hill has a couple of explanations, but as often as it is with the kind of communal effort with awareness, nothing is ever for sure, as assorted footwear hill is located between Port Stanley and the local airport, and only an explanation for Foothill is that retired employees posted at the airport leave a work boot behind on the hill as they move on, as another slightly darker legend offers a story of a local man whose leg was blown off by a forgotten landmine left by a tussle over the island between the UK and Argentina, as an injured man impaled his boot on the hill, and soon the state boot was joined by a continuously growing number of sympathy shoes. As perhaps the most likeable legend surrounding the hill's collection of assorted footwear is that if you leave your own behind on your visit to the island, to come to a close, you are meant to return, as it's kind of like off Darwin Road, like a few miles outside of Stanley. But please be aware of that there could still be landmines around. So as you don't want your own leg being blown off and all. So bye for now. I'll see you very soon.